My wife of 8 years cheated with her ex while I was in a business trip. So I kicked her from my house and divorced her, then watched the karma burn her world. My story of survival. Since I have started posting here, I figured it was time to tell my story to any who would listen. I hope it helps some of you currently going through the hell that is D-Day +1 to D-Day +3 years. In 2014, we had been together for a little over 8 years, married for 6. After supporting her through college to become a teacher, she went through a horrible first year, as teachers often do. I remember her saying she never wanted to teach again. I tried to convince her not to give up after spending 6 years of school. She changed her major twice, over one bad year. It turned into a gigantic fight, and finally after years of supporting her, I lost my cool. Fine, give up on it then, but you have to work. We can't make it on one income. After a few months, she found a job paying well below what she made as a teacher. I thought this was behind us, and that we were getting by just fine. Then my dad passed away. My dad and I had a strange relationship. My parents divorced when I was 12, and he was never really around, and when he was at the bar. Once he was diagnosed with heart failure, my dad began to try to reconnect with his family in his own strange way. But sadly, he had a time clock on his life at that point. My dad was taken off of life support and was given hours. He hung on for 10 days. It was absolute misery. I was a complete wreck. When he passed, we began to learn the hard way just how bad he was with finances. He left his kids a pile of debt to deal with. Naturally, you can assume I wasn't the most pleasant person to be around. I was struggling with the crap sandwich my dad left, and while I was angry at him, I was still grieving my father. If any of you have lost a loved one, you know how hard it can be. You are fine one moment, then out of nowhere, you are a sack of tears. Fast forward a few years to the winter of 2017. A mutual friend and chair of our local nerd con puts on a Facebook. He's getting a divorce because his wife cheated on him. My ex happened to be in the neighborhood and stopped by to talk to him. Her story. I'm convinced this is when the cheating started. I found it a little strange she stayed there for 5 hours, but I'm a trusting person and believed her account of them just talking. The months go by into the spring, and she is talking to him more and more. I'm getting a bit bothered by it, and I expressed that her talking to him, it started to make me uncomfortable. This gets downplayed as me being paranoid. I had a right to be. She went behind my back to have a talk with an ex before we got married. She needed closure, she said. Meh. The last weekend of April 2018. I'm going on a business trip to Vancouver, British Columbia, she tells me. Since she is home alone, she hated being by herself, often would have her mother come over and stay if I was away on weekends. Red flag? She is going to go out on a totally platonic date with this guy. I am not happy about it, knowing this guy is vulnerable, and it's just not a good idea. She goes anyway. At the time, we had geolocate on our phones in an effort to curb text messaging while driving. So if either one was concerned, they could check the GPS tracker and see that we were on our way home. Her idea. Red flag. Out of paranoia, I checked to see if she is home, and she says yes. I checked the tracker and noticed she is still out with him. I tell her I know she is still out, and to please go home as it is late. She gets pissed and doesn't talk to me the rest of the night. I try to work through the next day. She says she is again going over to his house. I am pissed at this point and implore her not to go over there. That this guy is vulnerable, and I am worried he is going to make a pass at her. She blows me off and shuts off her GPS tracker. Sunday rolls around and I am on a flight home, and she is suddenly all cutesy and crap. My alarm bells are going off like crazy in my head. Something is wrong. I get home late, had to bum a ride. She was supposed to pick me up, and I find her on the couch asleep. A week of weirdness goes by, and I am being gaslighted into feeling like I was being overly possessive and paranoid. I find out that weekend that she only kissed him after a long, hard-filled conversation, and that she is feeling like our marriage isn't worth saving. I spend 2 days trying everything I can to fix things. Pick me dance. She made up her mind. She decides to take the dog for a walk, and out of a moment of ultimate paranoia, I log into her tablet and open her email. That's where I found the undying professional of love to this guy, and how she wants to leave me. I am absolutely crushed. The room starts spinning, and I completely lose it. I can't breathe. I call her and tell her that I know. She rushes home, and I ask her flat out, "Do you want to be with him?" I think I do. It is at this point I fly into an absolute rage. I tell her I can't be near her right now and need to leave. I go get a hotel room for the night. It is at this point she leaves and goes to his place to spend the night. Knowing she left the dog, I check out and go home to take care of our pup. Even though it was completely over, I lay out all our wedding photos, all the pictures of us from the last 11 years, all of it on the kitchen table. She comes home and I make her sit and look at the pictures. Don't give up on this. Don't give up on us. Please do not throw away 11 years for someone you hardly know. What she said in response to something that took me years to get over. You are effed up. The other man has his crap together. I need time to decide. And she leaves. I sit there, crushed, knowing it is all over. I notice she left her tablet on the counter. Logged in. Temptation got the better of me and I opened her messaging app. I am waiting for you in bed. To him. I knew at that point it was over. I flew into a rage, smashed the wedding photo on the wall, called her and told her to come get her crap. It will be ready for her when she comes by to pick it up. My brother, bless him. I owe him my life. Helps me stack up all her crap on the front porch to pick up. Now, I know I could have handled crap better. Hindsight is 20/20. But the woman that I adored made sacrifices for, did everything I could do to keep her happy. I just shacked up with another man. She immediately moves in with him, changes her cell phone plan from mine to his, the same day, and this jackass goes to the convention that I was part of. The staff for it and proclaims his love, and that if anybody doesn't support them, they are kicked out. I am naturally banned from the convention, so not only did I lose my wife, I also lost my tribe. I thought that had my back. The convention goes off 4 weeks later. She is fully moved in with him at that point and plasters pictures all over Facebook hanging all over him. Meanwhile, while she is off on trips and flaunting her new relationship, I am pulling favors from family and one little friends I have left to move things out of our house and get out before the lease ends. Anytime I demanded help, she had some excuse. To make matters worse, even work wasn't safe. She started a new job the week she cheated at the same place I was working IT help desk lead. Over the course of that summer, I lost a ton of weight. I began smoking a pack a day, barely eating. While I spent my birthday alone, she was off showing her new man to her family, who dropped me like a bad hat and welcomed him with open arms. I sadly fell into the pick-me trap and tried several times during the summer to reason with her, to implore her to get out of that relationship and set out on her own. It was then she explained to me how I fell out of love with you after your dad died. I know you were grieving, but I had needs too. You stopped paying attention to me. During one of the last time I spoke to her, she tried coming on to me and I stopped it. I got angry and told her that this is not the effing Notebook and to grow the F up. As a final FU, she decides to take the other man on a trip that we had planned together to Ireland and England, the place where my family came from in the 1900s. At this point I had blocked her and anyone associated with her on social media, so thankfully I didn't see the trip plastered all over the place. Shortly after that, I finalized the divorce paperwork on my own and it was done. I haven't spoken to her in person since. 1 or 2 emails to settle some accounts, but other than that, she uses her parents as a proxy if there is something she needs. I exercised no contact with her and anyone associated with her. Sadly, that meant many friends who took her side or felt remaining in the conversation was far more important than keeping a friendship with me. Throughout this entire ordeal, I found a fantastic therapist. He helped me realize that none of this was normal, and I was trying to react the best way I could in an extremely effed up situation. His words. I learned through therapy and explaining what happened that there was nothing I could have done to prevent it, and all her excuses were baseless and not a justification for infidelity. I learned all in all, I have good coping skills, and I did the best I could have given the circumstances. I began working on being a better person and trying to let go of all this horrible, awful crap, taking time for self-recollection, self-care, etc. I remember the last thing he said to me before I stopped seeing him. There is nothing I have left to teach you. Go forth and conquer like my man. You've got this. First step I made for myself was getting out of that work environment. Seeing her constantly and working in the same office as her and several of her friends was torture. It was hard because I had invested so much of my life and energy into that job. I landed a great job back in my hometown. I worked for a school district. I love being around the kids. I feel a sense of purpose I think I needed. I have my good days in bed. Sometimes I will hear things about her and her life and it upsets me, but it doesn't floor me like it used to. I learned she married the guy this summer. About 3 months he divorced his wife. Yeah, took him 3 years to divorce his ex, but was living with another woman. From what I gather, she's incredibly skinny, looks tired all the time, and doesn't go anywhere without his permission. The hardest thing for me still is that I had no way to house our dog in the divorce, so she got her. I miss that dog. A few times she tried using the dog as an excuse to see me to gaslight me. It was a painful decision, but I had to end that too. Thankfully, that year of hell known as 2018 had a silver lining. I got a puppy. She is 2 now and is the best dog I have ever had. Currently sleeping on my foot as I type this. The other is that we never had kids. I know it's a mercy. She never wanted to have kids because it would ruin her body. But my biggest dream was to be a father. I am still single and probably will be for a while. Thanks, COVID. You dick. I am pushing 40 now and I am doubting that will ever be a reality for me, but the future isn't written, so I can hope. Since leaving the rubble of the life we built together, I got to reconnect with my family. My relationship with them has never been stronger. My mom commented that she got her son back. I began saving for the first time in my life. Since I am no longer working for another person to spend my money, I have very fulfilling hobbies that I would have had to make a federal case for before. I finally learned to love myself again, and so many years of feeling like I was the reason our marriage fell apart. I know my truth. I was a good husband, flawed sure, but supportive, kind, and not the monster she made me out to be. D-Day plus 3 years is coming up this April. I can't believe how far I have come since then. I still have bad days. It still hurts sometimes, but that's grief. Grief never goes away. You don't get over it. You simply learn to manage it. If you have made it this far, thank you for reading my story. Update. 3 years is a long time, but karma finally came, it seems. Full disclaimer, I am not one to subscribe to the karma thing. I have seen far too many people get away with awful things, but seemingly no consequences. It gave up on waiting for it to happen to my ex because it wasn't helping me get to a better place mentally or emotionally. Then I spotted her in a crowd at a brew fest. I almost did not recognize her. She looks awful. Whatever is going on with that sack of turd she left me for and married must be taking its toll. She is real thin. Looks like one of those people at the gym that is so obsessed with being fit, they look exhausted and withered. A stark contrast from the woman who she used to be. She is 33 and easily looks 10 years older. By instinct, I looked away and avoided eye contact. From what my brother says, she clapped her eyes on both us waiting in line for a beer and got the hell out of Dodge. Later, I am catching up with old friends that had my back turned the whole thing. I learned that she and her husband, a fair partner, are really struggling financially. The convention he rules with an iron fist and kicked me out of, along with anyone who spoke out against him, is being investigated by the IRS, and that many of the people around them are seeing them for the toxic a-holes they really are. My response to hearing the news about how rough she looks or how her life seems to be floating in the toilet, she did this to herself. Update progress. For years ago, almost to the day, the woman I pledged my life to for saking all others cheated on me. It took 6 brutal months to divorce and get no contact to stick, mostly for me. I am posting this for those who are currently going through the gauntlet and maybe answer some questions. It still hurts, though not as much as it did all those years ago. Like a physical open wound, it eventually heals, but the scar will remain. Sometimes scar tissue will hurt. In those first few months, you cannot trust yourself at all. I was manipulated several times into being her emotional cry pillow for something she did to us. Why was I consoling her when she was the one who wrecked everything? Because I still cared about her. Unlike her, that love I had for her wasn't fickle. It takes a long time to learn how to not love someone anymore. Any friends who say, "I'm not choosing sides," is someone you need to distance from. They chose a side and it wasn't yours. I had a friend of 20 years. In retrospect, they were toxic AF. Claim they were not taking sides and wound up becoming friends with the affair partner. I suspect to climb the social ladder. Tell your story. Be unapologetically honest. Cheaters are famous for painting a narrative to everyone that betrayed spouses an awful person and a feeble attempt to justify their cheating. The best way to combat this is to be honest. It is no longer your responsibility to keep their secrets. Do your absolute best to maintain no contact. It is very hard to do sometimes. I have failed at it a lot. Block them everywhere. Best option, if you can afford it, is to have communication done through a third party. You do not have to forgive them. Use that energy forgiving yourself. You do not have to get back out there and meet someone new. Do it when you feel ready, not when others say. You are going to hear invalidating comments from ignorant people. Get over it. It takes two to tango. There are two sides to every story.
Etc., etc.
Comments like these come from a place of ignorance. They haven't gone through what you have. They do not understand. I hope this post can be a good place for those of us who are farther along the path to help those who are pulling themselves out of the quicksand of despair. That is what I love about this community. People are here to help. Living your best life is the best revenge.